And one of the issues that we had to deal with was we got criticized. Can you believe that? PennLive being criticized? They said it was great what we were doing, but where are the young voices? So that's why we're here today at Harrisburg University. We're going to have a session that allows young people to talk. And before we do, I'm going to turn to Stephanie McAuliffe, who's with the Foundation for Enhancing Communities, because they have had just such support for this series, being a sponsor and just joining us to show their support and to show the community's support for our efforts to engage in dialogue. So Stephanie, I'm going to let you have the floor, and then we'll get started with our young people.
That's good. Thank you, Joyce. I appreciate it. And as Joyce said, I'm Stephanie McAuliffe. I'm the Vice President of Community Impact with the Foundation for Enhancing Communities, also known as TFEC. It's a real honor for me to be here today and to be with our young people and to hear their feedback. At TFEC, we have a very strong commitment to helping students get access to education and to resources in our community. We believe that education, it is a pathway. And being here at Harrisburg University, it just reinforces that. It's a pathway, not only to just getting a job, but it's also a pathway to community engagement, civic contributions. And we show that dedication, that commitment, by offering more than 200 scholarships to young people and to local students. Last year alone, we were able to award over $2 million in scholarships to more than 500 local students in our area. And that is a real honor for us, and it's because of our community and the contributions from our community that we're able to do that, and we're empowered to do that. And scholarships are more than just financial awards. That's a great benefit, but it's also affirmation to our community. And we want all of you to know that that shows that young people are seen, they're heard, and they truly are valued. And that is why today is so important, and that's why TFEC supports these efforts. Because we understand that financial barriers and access to resources and just knowing what is available, to young people, those are challenges. And sometimes students that are in the city face even other obstacles that others may not. So today, while we hear from our young people and we hear this discussion, I ask you to think about three things: access, belonging, and connections. Access, having access to information. What is available out there? How do I get this information? As a community, we want to make sure our young people have access to information and to those resources. Belonging. We want to make sure our students and our young people in our community know that we are behind them, that our community stands with them, and we support them, and we want them to succeed, and we're here to help with that. The last one is connections. And I say, anybody that's in our community, help our young people make connections. Be a mentor. Offer internships. Offer jobs. Connect them with your organization. Help them network. Teach them how to network. That's what we can do. So everybody in our community has a role to play. And TFEC is very honored to be a part of this. Joyce, I thank you. I thank Harrisburg University for this today and this beautiful facility. And thank you to PennLive for allowing us to be a part of everything. Thank you to our panelists and everybody here that's with us. I wish you all the best, and thank you again.
Well, thank you, Stephanie. That was beautiful. TFEC truly is a treasure in our community. You make so many wonderful things happen, so thank you.
Thank you.
Well, I guess we're going to get started now with our discussion. Again, I know this is going to be a wonderful conversation because I already had a chance to visit this class a few weeks ago and to talk a little bit with the young people, and I was just bowled over. I was bowled over by not only their insights into Harrisburg and just their can-do spirit, but also that they care. Because we think young people don't really care, right? You only care. No, they really care about the city of Harrisburg. So with that, what I'm going to do is first just tell you who's here. This is the class at Harrisburg University, and Angela Brichter, it's her class, right? And we have now 5 students, and I'll tell you their names, but here's what I'm going to do. Rather than to read their long and illustrious bios, I'm going to let them tell you what's the most important thing that we need to know as we start our conversation. So we have, and you guys can kind of raise your hand when I say your name, Chris Jones. Okay, third year ISIT student at Harrisburg University. He's going to tell you a little bit more about himself, but I can tell you this, he actually grew up in Lidditz, okay? So that's interesting, and is living here in Harrisburg. And we have Reese August. Reese also is a freshman who's majoring a forensic biology major here at Harrisburg University of Science and Technology. Remember that? That's the science part. And then we have Scott Stevens. Scott Stevens Jr., he's a fourth-year student from Philadelphia, from Philly, right? From Philly. And then we have Kelsey Wardell, who's a fourth-year student also in forensics. I'm going to tell you right off the bat, I am so excited because these are smart kids. I say kids because I'm so old, young adults, okay? They're very smart, and they're going to show you what kind of brain power and heart they can bring to this city to solving the problem. So here's what we're going to do. I'm going to pass, well, you guys have microphone. I'll pass this one first to Kelsey so she can tell us what we really need to know about her, and the same for each one of you, okay?
Well, hello, everybody. I know I can't see any of you, so that makes me feel a little bit awkward. But my name is Kelsey Wardell. As our lovely host said, I'm a fourth year here, forensics major, crime scene investigation concentration, just in case you were wondering. I also grew up in Lidditz, Pennsylvania, so that's fun. I actually didn't know that Chris grew up there, but I live in Lancaster, and I'm currently commuting, although in my first year, I lived fully on campus in the city, so that provided me a lot of insights about the city itself. And I still part-time live up here during the week, so I don't have to commute every single day, because that's ridiculous.
Yeah. Okay, go ahead, Reese.
Hi, I'm Reese. I am a freshman forensic biology major, as Joyce said. I currently am living in the on-campus housing, so I get an experience of what the city life is like. I am from Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, so I get that city experience and background, but I also currently, when I'm not in school, live in Bucks County, so I can get the side of both the suburbs and the inner city. And I think that is just an interesting idea that I can bring.
Excellent, thank you. Well, go ahead, that's Chris?
Scott.
No, Scott, sorry, Scott.
Fine. Hi, I'm Scott. I'm a fourth-year interactive media student here at HU. I'm from Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. And my entire life, so from when I was 4 years old to when I graduated high school, I went to school in downtown Philadelphia. So coming to Harrisburg, that was a huge part of my choice because it was an environment I was familiar with living in the city. And I've lived on campus all my 4 years here. And so I've known the city extensively, and I've kind of been throughout the different areas of the city. So I'm happy to be speaking here today on my experience. Yep.
Great, okay. Now, Chris.
Hi, I'm Chris Jones. I'm an ISIT major here, third-year student. I grew up in Lidditz, which is a small town, a little bit far away from Lancaster. I came here to HU, and since then I've been living in the Raum apartment buildings. So I've been living in the city the past 3 years. So I'm excited to share my experiences moving from a small town to a big city.
Great, and make sure you guys put it to your mouth so they can really hear you. All right.
Saving the best for last. Hello, I am Jasmine McAlilly. I am from Randallstown, Maryland, so I am an out-of-state student that is a fourth year here at Harrisburg University. I am currently a esports management major here at the university, and I have lived in residence on Market for all 4 years so far, and I'm glad I'm here on this panel today to also share my experiences from an out-of-state perspective as opposed to an in-state perspective.
Very good, and I understand we can call you Jazz, right? All right, excellent, all right. So guys, let's get down to it. I mean, you've been here, you're young people, you wanna go out, you wanna do things, you wanna have fun. I used to be young, so I know that. But what I wanna talk to you right now is from your perspectives. Let's try to narrow it down. What do you see as, let's say, the top 3 things that are impacting Harrisburg's economic development? And I'm just going to leave it at that. And let's start in the middle. Let's start in the middle so we won't just get predictable here with you, Scott.
All right, well, in my opinion, like the first big problem we have in Harrisburg is a lack of structure here. So like we lose a lot of things that in communities are needed. So I think one of the biggest things recently was earlier this year, the Rite Aid closed. And so it's right downtown, and outside of that Rite Aid, to my knowledge, I'm pretty sure there's no other pharmacy in the city. So that's a big problem. So if you live in the city and you don't have a car or like a convenient way to commute, you're kind of left like abandoned there in terms of like getting the things you need, whether it's like medication and so on. And there's a lot of closed businesses here in Harrisburg. In my 4 years here, there's so many, especially on 2nd Street, which is supposed to be like the main area of the city. There's businesses that have been closed there my entire 4 years here. Or things open and they're there open for like less than a year or maybe a little over a year. Or there's things that have been here for like 4 years but have been shut down. Like for example, Aruga's, they've been shut down, which is a sports bar for those who don't know. It's been shut down for a little over a year for like construction or maintenance issues. But from what I've seen, there's been no progress in that. So there's a lot of things that shut down there. So I think that's a big problem.
That's
like
number one, shut down businesses.
You shut down businesses.
Okay.
And the second thing I think is like a lack of commerce. So outside of, you have a lot of government workers here in the city. But outside of that, there's not a lot of things going on here, which I think is a problem. So there's there's a lack of business here, like outside of like Harrisburg University and like the different government stuff. In the downtown, there's a real lack of that. So in the day-to-day, there's a lot of times where the city just feels empty in the middle of the week. Or on like a Friday night, like it's quiet like by 9 o'clock. So there's like, it's not a lot of stuff going on outside of like the 9 to 5 for like those main areas.
And Scott, do you have a car?
Oh, no, I don't have a car on campus.
Okay, all right. Mm-hmm.
And then I think overall, the last third thing would be a lack of engagement and like an event culture. Like with me coming from Philadelphia, I haven't gone to a university in there, but I've lived in the downtown, or gone to school in the downtown, and I'm very familiar with those environments. And there's a lot of different things going on year round, whether it's like cool like events or just stuff like of that caliber, right? Like year round, there's things happening throughout the seasons. Whereas in Harrisburg, the only thing that really comes to mind for me is Capona, which happens at the start of the college semester. But throughout the college year from fall to spring, that's really the only major thing that happens. And so there's not a lot of things going on like that. And in my 4 years here, I think each year it gets a bit worse in terms of event culture.
Worse, okay.
Yeah, so I think those are the three things that are kind of affecting the city. And it's why a lot of people outside of coming for work don't really stay here. Yeah.
Well, Reese, come on. I see you nodding your heads.
I do agree with a lot of what Scott said. I know for me personally, as somebody who's 18, a lot of like the nightlife and stuff, you can't do that because a lot of it's 21 over. Even still, like just during the day, there's not a lot of just like entertainment or stuff for younger people. Really, there's only the Whitaker Center, and that gets boring every once in a while. I think especially for people who lack transportation, having some sort of nearby access to entertainment or like just things to do would be essential to the city and make it a more lively place. Coming from Philadelphia, I know like there was a lot of events and stuff, but you could very easily, in the heart of the city, take a walk down the street and maybe there's a cat cafe or an art studio or an arcade. That's not really something we have access to here unless you have a form of transportation to get outside the city limits.
And let me just ask you this. There's some stuff going on in Midtown, right? Is that kind of too far for you guys to walk, or what are your thoughts about that?
I know for me personally, if it's like during the day, it's fine. But when it gets to later in the night, that's when like the 15-minute walk could be a safety issue.
Got it. Okay, Jazz.
So to pretty much add on to what Scott and Reese already said, I do strongly believe that the loss of businesses here, as well as the lack of jobs in correlation with that, is really kind of putting a chokehold on the city. I've also just watched more and more stuff close over time, and more stuff to get taken away. Like, for example, we used to have Chock-a-Block Clock in Strawberry Square. It was a nice attraction, and not just for children, it's also nice for me to hear. It's like a very soothing sound to hear as you walk through a bustling area. We don't have that anymore. One of my favorite spots to eat was the original hot dog factory. That's gone, it's being replaced. So stuff like that, basic stuff like that is getting harder and harder to come by. And when you have to walk all the way down to Midtown just to entertain yourself or get something to eat, then that's way too far. And like Reese said, that does become an issue if you're going at night. Because let's say, I know there's like a small bodega that's like slightly past all of the Broad Street Market vendors, right? Say you have to go there and you don't have what you need. Well, now you have to get on the bus at night, but the bus schedules aren't the greatest either. So it just creates an issue that is continuously piles on with each other. And one of the other things that I also believe is a major problem in the city is homelessness. The number of people that I always see coming back from Walmart trips just sitting out by the 2nd Street bus stop, it's very, very saddening to me, right? And I'm thinking, hey, why are the city officials pushing these people away, right? I've seen stories on the news about there used to be a homeless encampment by Front Street. That got taken away. There used to be a homeless man that lived under the Market Street Bridge. He's gone. But where did they go? They have nowhere else to go. They never had a place to go to begin with. And it frustrates me that the city doesn't really do anything about it, but just continue to push them away instead of providing them housing or job opportunities to help rebuild the city.
So the homelessness thing, I think there's been at least an attempt at a solution, but we'll talk about that later. There's a parking lot or former truck lot that's been opened, and they have little tents there. So I don't know how well it's going to go, but at least I think that's an attempt. But anyway, let's bring in Kelsey into this. Kelsey, well,
I can do either. All right, so essentially, I agree with everything that all of my classmates have said so far. I don't remember if I said this before, but I also live in Lancaster currently, so I have another experience of having another sort of downtown experience that is not, it's definitely not as busy or as bustling as Philadelphia, just due to size. But I would say that they are somewhat on par with each other as far as culture and history. And they have both been developing a lot of that recently, whereas Harrisburg, I grew up in this area, so I would come up here all the time because I have family in the area. However, the only time I would really come up here for like fun and family events is towards Hershey for like a concert or like the Hershey Sweet Lights or anything of those nature. Otherwise, it was the farm show. And I love the farm show, but that's kind of all it is. I don't even know what, it's called the Farm Show Expo, and it gets used like 4 times, other times during the year. That's a big place, and it's not necessarily used. But even aside from that, I think one of my biggest issues as far as the city goes is the lack of like walkability, which is something that we lack overall across the entire country. Our country we've expanded too fast, too quickly, and it's not anyone's fault. We just did not have the time to build in the commodities that allow for a walkable city and allow for people to live and have what they need around them. And we definitely do not have them here. I know Scott mentioned the Rite Aid. That was a big blow here. I know my first year when I lived here, I went to that Rite Aid multiple times a week for little grocery necessities that I needed, to pick up my medicines. When I had a cold, I would stop in and get medicine. You can't do that now. I know the nearest pharmacy from here, walkable, it's technically walkable, but it's at least an hour's walk, one direction. And that's if you can get your medications there. So it's a massive problem. I know I have a friend that I stay with here. That's why I live here partially during the week. And I help transport him because I have my car and I commute. And I transport him for like doctor's appointments, and we go get groceries and everything. But the only reason we're able to sustain any of that is because of the fact that I have a car. So we do have our school like funded, and like our school does do like transportation shuttles for shopping, and they do their best. Like, is it as frequent as it could be? No, but again, they're doing what they can for us, and that is as helpful as it can be. But otherwise, there's a lack of like small grocers. I know if you walk up 3rd Street and you just keep walking towards like Broad Street Market, I know there are some very small like niche farmers markets and everything, and those are wonderful to go into, and they're massive community spots, and I love them. But they are not priced for people who need to worry about their budget, or even just those who need to maybe cut back a little bit or just are trying to save money in general. And that's not their fault. They're providing a service that is very niche and that people do go to, but it's not for the general public. And that is something that we definitely lack.
Okay, so just to recap for the people who are watching us online and all of it, and for those who can do something about it, I think I heard that the lack of businesses and the fact that it seems to be getting worse is one of the top three. The second one, really clearly you need medical stuff. You need a drugstore. That's not, and groceries, right? So, but the other thing I think I heard was transportation, not being able to, the school does provide you a shuttle, which helps, right? And it sounds like you went to Walmart. You go frequently to Walmart, right? Is that?
I usually just go on the week, not kind of bi-weekly, but week and a half, we'll say that, Walmart trips that the school provides. But there have also been occasional times where I will get on the public transportation to get to Walmart if I needed something like now.
Right, but the public transportation also is slow. It's not
Yes.
really, okay. And what about you? You have a car. What do you do about that?
I pay what I believe is an exorbitant amount of money to the city of Harrisburg for parking. I pay $250 a month. And right now, that is coming from my parents, because being a full-time college student in your senior year does not allow a lot of time outside of that to work. So they have been very, very graciously helping me
Yeah.
through this. But it is, I think I calculated, and it's about, and that doesn't include the random charges here and there for, like, your card broke, now you get a new one. Oh, you get $50 and $30 for that. Okay, fair. Still extra money. And that is even as an unreserved spot. So if I wanted to have a guaranteed spot, technically, granted, there are many, many, many spots in these parking garages, but it's the fact that there's the distinction. I think there is a almost $125 difference between an unreserved spot and a reserved spot in our parking garages, at least in the Harrisburg University garage in this building. That's the one where I park. And it's a lot of money.
It's nice to have rich parents.
Oh, rich
You
is,
say that, but
rich is a
I
little
hear
much,
you.
but
I
yeah.
hear 200. That is a lot, because that's in addition to everything else you're having to pay. All right. So I think, did I miss anything? All right. So the next thing that you guys, I want you to really say, if you were to think about what the city really needs, I think I heard one of them. You need more stuff to do. But zero in a little bit more on that. When you're talking about stuff to do, are you talking about like concerts? Are you talking about like just places to hang? Or, I mean, like, give us an idea of what and we'll start with you, Jazz. What would you want to do? What do you think the city needs to do to attract young people like you and to keep you here?
Me personally, obviously, as I mentioned before, I'm an esports major. I want esports stuff to do. There are basically no esports related jobs in the city. I have to turn to graphic designing opportunities instead in order to keep pursuing my career. So one of the things that we used to have in the city that only lasted for a year was a LAN center from the Susquehanna Sonics. It was the most hyped up, talked about thing when I got here as a freshman. I was lucky enough to be a part of that grand opening, and then a year later it disappeared because the Sonics moved out to Philadelphia, I believe. And why they moved out to Philadelphia, I'm guessing is because there's really not much that they could do here, and that's understandable. And they ended up giving whatever PCs they had in that LAN center to the university's esports team. And I would love to have LAN centers. I'm also a competitive gamer. I want to be able to play in weeklies. I want to attract other people from around central Pennsylvania to come to these weeklies, so that way we have something that they can do. But for a more general sense, I think basic stuff like, I don't know, like cat cafes, for example. Maybe somebody wants something therapeutic to do, right? We can have cat cafes or just art stuff to do.
What's a cat cafe?
Yeah.
Tell me about it. I don't know what, CAT cafe?
Yeah.
Okay.
So cat cafes, they basically, it'll have like a bunch of kittens in them. And you can also order like a coffee or a snack. And you can either watch the kittens, you can either pet the kittens. Pet the kittens, at least for the one cat cafe I've been into in Baltimore, you had to you had to have registered already a date to be in the room with the cats. So just something like that, but just basic activities like maybe that, an art place, just another place to study, or even just more stuff for children to do. Because I know how many times have us as HU students gone into the Whitaker Center and we see other elementary or middle schools there. And I'd imagine that these elementary and middle schools are probably tired of just going to the Whitaker Center constantly, because that's really the only thing that they can do that isn't Kipona. But by the time Kipona happens, school's already started for them.
Right. Reese, why don't you chime in here? What would it take to make you happy here?
For me personally, I'm not that much of a competitive gamer and stuff, but I would still, I think like even just like an arcade in general, that maybe like some nights out of the week they had like those weekly matches that Jazz was talking about. I think that would be something beneficial, because that you could take people of all ages to, like a Dave and Buster's kind of thing. That would be a good idea, like school field trips and stuff. I know my school, we went there like once or twice maybe. I think also like an art studio, that could be helpful. It's therapeutic, and you could have like host art classes for local elementary schools, or even just like for adults, like a wine and paint night or something like that. Kind of building off of what Jazz said with Cat Cafe, I think even just animal shelters too. Like there is a lot of animals that needs home as well. And that could also provide jobs and volunteer opportunities for students and just people who need the jobs. I feel like that could also be like, it would benefit both the people working there and the animals there.
You know, as you're talking, I'm seeing Strawberry Square with games all around it, or even, as you say, a paint and sip night at Strawberry Square. That would be doable. Let me ask you this, and go ahead and then you can finish, but are there any student organizations that are perhaps taking some of these initiatives on? Because you guys could do a paint and sip, right?
We couldn't, because we are a dry campus.
But that's Strawberry Square.
Yeah.
Students of HU.
Yeah.
Oh.
So, no,
Well, we could paint and sip punch.
we could. But like Scott was saying, there has been stuff like that. I know in general, the school, we host events sometimes, but it's really like, it's hard for what we can and can't do. A lot of times it is just board games or video games or something like that. I'd love to see maybe like an art night or something, but that's more specific to the school. Even just looking around for things to do in the city, like when I first toured here in 2022, Strawberry Square was dying, and now it's basically dead. There's nothing to do, and I feel like that would be a great place for just something. There's so many like open buildings and like rooms and stuff in there that could be turned into like maybe an art, like I was saying, like an art studio. There could be childcare in there for the local teachers.
Well, I think
and
there is.
stuff.
There is one childcare. Yeah, I think. Yeah.
The only one I've seen
Yeah.
in the entirety of the city.
There needs more.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're right.
Or just like even like a tutoring center or something to help like the inner city kids get that education and stuff that's important.
Yeah.
It would provide a sense of community and connect people with what they need.
Good point. Let's bring Scott. Your thoughts.
So I agree with what Jazz and Reese have said. And then I will say, like, Reese brought up Midtown earlier. And I think that's a great example because I go to Midtown a lot. Like, I love the bookstore there. They do, like, live music, and there's a coffee shop there. I go to the movie theater a lot because they have, like, a lot of newer movies for, like, reasonable ticket prices. There's a farmer's market there. So there's things, you know, in the outer areas, but in the downtown, there's really none of
Nothing.
that. So I think, like, more things like that could really help. And just promoting city life outside of work. Because a lot of people, like I stated earlier, like, you know, they come to work and they leave. And or if you hear people that are like, you know, in my age range or a little older, when they go to do certain events and stuff, they go, oh, yeah, I went to a couple of towns over there, like Elizabethtown or somewhere. And it's never really here. And so I think we need more things like that and just like promoting, like, you know, we used to do like a concert series here in the city. But I personally think it wasn't promoted well enough. So that's why they kind of ended that, because, you weren't getting a good turnout, but I think that was more of like a marketing issue. So like bring more things like that back. And then Jazz brought up a good point with esports that like I know in Philly, there's a place called Tap Esports in Chinatown. And there's a place where you go in, you pay like, it's not a lot of money, and you get like a couple hours free to like play on like the high-end computers they have there. And whatever money you don't spend, it rolls over to your next time. So you have that time left over. So something like that. We could have had that with the Sonic Center, but they changed that. So like more opportunities like that. And I like that Reese brought up the like the student life events, because I actually I'm a CL, like that's a connection leader, so I'll put on different student life events here. And we are kind of like held back on the things we can do. So a way to kind of more things in the city would help that, to keep students here, just from like a student perspective. Because I personally know a lot of students, like they wish more, like from my first year to now, wish there was more things to do in the city. Because if you're not if you're under 21, and even if you're over 21, if you're not an older person, there's not a lot that interests you here. Yeah. So more things like that, and then just promoting more of the opportunities that we have here at this, like in the city, things with the school, promoting that more. We have dual enrollment stuff, and we have a better turnout of dual enrollment this year, I will say. But more stuff with the school, more because recently we've had HYP's done events here and different cybersecurity conferences, stuff like that. And then there's so many different WebFX. I know me and a few students in my major went to WebFX last week for we got to tour their building and all the stuff they do. So being more cautious, the city should be more cautious of those things, promote those different opportunities for work and school and so on.
Okay. And are all of you under 21?
I'm 21.
You're 21.
Yeah.
So you're 21. You're 22. Okay. So, all right.
I think I'm the only one under 21.
Okay. All right. Well, bring you in, Chris. What are your thoughts?
I'd say one of the big things we need is really just more things that are walkable, things like a grocery store, things like a drugstore, things for people to do. I think Lancaster was a really good example because, I've been there plenty of times, and recently they've had a really big turnaround. I mean, if you go to Lancaster now, they have Lancaster Cupcake, which is a really nice cupcake place. They have a pottery place, which is really nice. It's great for families, kids, people of all ages. And they also have a retro arcade place that is really big, and they did a good job with that. And here we just kind of lack memorable things to do. There's no real reason for people to come into the city. If I had a friend that wanted to drive over and be like, hey, I want to hang out in Harrisburg today, what do I do? I really wouldn't have a good answer to them. I'd be like, well, we could go to the Midtown Cinema, we could go to, on the market, the Broad Street Market, but those aren't that's not going to get them excited. People our age aren't looking to go to just see a movie and shop a little bit. There's also
So what would they do? You said the arcade would be one, and a cat cafe. And would that be one too? You would go to the cat cafe? Okay.
Yeah, I think that's pretty popular with it's very therapeutic, and people are just looking for places where they can relax, where they can study, where they can just
An
spend
art
time
gallery,
with
if
friends.
Strawberry Square were an art gallery and had, okay.
Yeah.
That would be wonderful. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
I think that's a big part too. Strawberry Square has a lot of just not used space. There's a lot of empty stalls that you see people come in and clean them occasionally, but that's about it. And I think we mentioned earlier that Strawberry Square has kind of been shrinking. We lost the Rite Aid, we lost the Members First Federal Union, we lost, there was Bam's Crab that opened up and they closed within a year. And it really shows that, businesses just can't stay open in Strawberry Square. It seems like there's a cafe area upstairs, and they've been pretty solid and consistent. None of them have closed down since I came here, but nothing else is expanding up there because there are empty food stalls up there, but nobody's moved in. And I think we're also missing a big market too of during lunch times in that cafe area. It is very busy. There are a lot of people that show up. People love Two Brothers Pizza. They go to the Tropical Smoothie. They go to the Fresca Chicken, but if you show up too early in the morning, there's nobody there because a lot of the places don't open till 9 or 10 o'clock. And if you come later in the day, everything's closed. Most of the businesses close from about 4 to 6 o'clock. With a lot of them just closing up early. They say their hours are till 6, but they know nobody shows up. So it's kind of a self-fulfilling prophecy of, nobody comes here for dinner because why would they?
Right. Well, go ahead. I'm going to let you.
Sure. Yeah, I think one of my biggest things is there's an utter lack of community spaces, at least that are open to the community and that are friendly. And like at this point, as I'm sitting here thinking about it, I don't think I could name one. I know that we have a library or two. I don't remember. I have not personally gone. It's been on my list of things to do, but I'm very busy. It seems wonderful, but I also know that the one library is very small. I believe it's the Riverfront Library. It's a gorgeous historical stone building, and I think it's beautiful. And I know they've been doing recent work on it to make it a more open space, but it is kind of also tucked away. I think we have we have way too much open space within Strawberry Square, within the buildings surrounding Harrisburg. The Capitol is one of the main things. It's one of the main reasons we have so many people during the day, and also the main reasons we have absolutely nothing to do on weekends or at nights or even in the mornings. So I think because we have the government workers that are finally starting to come back into the city, but I know when I started in 2022, there was no one, because that was still sort of in the aftermath of COVID and everything that happened. So we're finally starting to see people coming back into the city. But now, because of everything and all of the repercussions that have happened, there's nothing for them to do, and there's nowhere for them to go. So people are coming back, and then they leave, because why would they stay? As well as just like, there is a lack of events and family-oriented things to do. We have City Island, which is a wonderful place to go if you can get there, which is fine, because they do have that ability to walk over, which is wonderful. However, unless you have money for senators tickets, there's not a lot to do. So, or like the mini golf or whatever other clubs are over there, again, you're kind of out of luck. So those are wonderful spaces that I think could be used for so many things, having creative spaces or even just places where people can go if they need a spot to like decompress, or just having something like a cat cafe or animal shelters or something. Those are massive. The morale of people who live in and around this city, I think, has tanked, because there's nothing to keep it up or rebuild it. Like seeing all of these businesses that we love and finally have become loyal to shutting down and closing every other year, it doesn't do well for your mental health or for the community impact and how you feel as part of Harrisburg. It's not like, oh yeah, I live in Harrisburg. No one likes to say that they live in Harrisburg, because people are like, where is that half of the time? Which is fine, but we're the capital of our state. We kind of could step it up a little bit, I think.
Good. Yeah, go ahead.
I was going to say, one of the best ways I can put it is when people think of Pennsylvania and like the capital, they don't think of Harrisburg. They think of Philadelphia, Pittsburgh.
Lancaster even.
Yeah, even Lancaster. They don't think of Harrisburg. We don't put ourselves on the map enough to be noticeable. So I think definitely like we need to build those connections, show that we belong as the capital of the state, show that we are a place that things happen.
So what I'm hearing, yeah, go ahead. Chime on in.
I just wanted to make a point because they brought up some good points. And it feels like sometimes, and I felt this since like my second year, that the city's almost targeted towards retirees, because you have people who go to work, you have like a couple restaurants here and there, and that's pretty much it. But what happens when those people are no longer in the city? And it's kind of like there's no other targeted livers there, like the user base essentially. And the young people are here. There's a number of high schools here, right?
Yep.
And there's one in Strawberry Square, and there's all these high schools here, and there's a college, there's multiple colleges here. So it gets to the point where when these people finish high school, they should be in the mindset where like, oh, I should go to college down here because the city has all these opportunities. But that's not really the case for a lot of people. A lot of people want to leave or go somewhere else. So I feel like we could build around that. That would be a thing. And then I'm pretty sure Kelsey and Chris brought up that there's a lot of empty spaces here, which is a problem because it just makes it feel like, what's the point of staying? You see all these empty storefronts, or even in Strawberry Square, which is essentially like the mall of the downtown, like an equivalent to that. There's not much going on there. So it's like, why would I, like a lot of people's like mindsets are like, why would I stay there?
As you guys are talking, it's clear to me that if there were things to do, and there could be low-cost things to do, just having an art exhibition is not going to be that much, but it seems like we need some sort of campaign, some sort of pulling together. Here's what we're going to do every month. Here's what's going to be the calendar of events for developing a calendar of events for Harrisburg, right? But here's the thing that I'm worried about. I hear you guys saying there's enough people here anyway, from the high schoolers to the college students to the people who are coming back, to attract businesses. There's enough there. But the businesses were saying they don't get enough foot traffic, right? Because of parking and all of that. Anybody want to comment on that? Do you think there's enough people? Go ahead. Go ahead.
If you bring up parking in this city, I will gladly talk about it. It's tough. I know that the city has done some work to try and make parking a little bit more accessible or a little bit cheaper. I know there are very, very specific like times at certain garages at certain times of the year that have a slightly cheaper price to park for like a few hours, but it's like, oh, you still have to leave between these hours. Like, they're just very specific, and they're kind of intimidating to look at. So even if I was looking to go downtown to do something like on a late night, I know we mentioned arcades. There is one. It's called Nocturnal, but it's also a nightclub. So once again, you have to be 21 to get in. So, and I think they might open it up sometimes during the day, but I don't know. I'm also not a big fan of that kind of thing. So I would just like, no, that's not something I look at. But there are so many things that we could be doing, but nobody can get there. And even if they can, they don't want to, because then they're still spending more money to get to the event that they're gonna have to go to and probably have to pay for. So it's just not worth it.
So parking is an issue, but go ahead. It's you can solve it. I mean, right? It can be solved if there were simply the brain power and the coming together to say, if this is an issue, let's figure out how to solve it. Does that make sense to you guys? And the things that are happening is solvable. It's just, let's get together and figure out an events calendar, working with Whittaker and Harrisburg U and whatever businesses or things that there may be. There is a place that's about to start, a music place on Front Street, I think that's getting ready to open. But again, it may be a nightclub, so it's going to leave out some folks. But go ahead, what were you going to say?
I was going to say, since like in Philadelphia, if anybody from Philadelphia knows that the parking authority downtown in the last few years, they've gotten really, they've amped it up to say, like, in terms of giving out tickets, they're very big on that. And with my experience in Harrisburg, I sometimes feel like it's equal to, or sometimes worse than it is in Philadelphia with the street parking. And when it comes to, yeah.
And what about Lancaster? Is Lancaster better than here for really?
Yes. Their overall prices are better. I think it's also easier to find the parking garages. I don't think you have to do as much research there. I think they're spaced out in a way that makes more sense. And they also advertise the things that are closer to them. And the businesses themselves also advertise where you can actually park, which just helps in general.
Okay. Did I cut you off? Okay.
I was going to say, it feels like with like the parking authority here, it's almost predatory in terms of the street parking and getting tickets and stuff like that. Like I remember one day in my second year, I came back up from winter break, and my dad was helping me bring stuff in, and it was at like 7 in the morning. Couldn't have been in there for more than 15 minutes on and off taking stuff in. And we came back, my dad had a $50 ticket.
Oh my goodness. Oh.
And we were just like aghast at it. But I understand that, with cities like Harrisburg, that's a way of bringing in revenue. Like, with a parking authority, increasing that. But in practice, that's driving away a lot of people. And it's why a lot of people, they either Uber to the city or take the bus, or they're parking, but they're not parking downtown, and they park in the parking lots on the outside of the city, or they park in Midtown. Mm-hmm. So I think that's a big thing. It's like, yeah, you're trying to like get funding for the city, but like two things. One, you're drawing people away, and two, where is that funding going at this point? Because we still have all these problems in the city in terms of like life here.
Yeah. So, and we did talk a little bit about Uber. Does Uber work for you guys when you're ready to get around? So that's one. No, not for you? Okay.
I'd say for me personally, there's definitely like, it's hard to get an Uber in the city in general just because of traffic and stuff. But even still, with the cost of it, it adds up very fast. Especially like with recent gas price increases and stuff like that, which can't be controlled. But still, people have to make money somehow, and it adds up very quickly to the point where it's like, I don't want to spend that money, so why am I going to go do things? I think what would make more sense is having more accessible buses and schedules, because a lot of the times I'm walking around the city, I just see buses on not in service. Like, that's what it says on their dash, or just not there.
Well, let me ask you this. Somebody brought on one of our former discussions, brought up the idea of a trolley, which captivated me. I'd love to see a trolley. If there were a trolley that circled the city, would that be something that you think would not only attract you, but maybe attract other people to come in?
I think that could help in concept, at least. If it depends on how long a day it goes, because I think Reese brought up a good point with the buses. Like, by the time 5 o'clock hits, the majority of the buses are saying, "Oh, not in service." So it's like, what if you have to do something? What if you want to do something in the city past that time? And that's during the week. Like, who knows what it's like during the weekend? So I think in concept, if it were to stay around throughout the late hours of the day, that could help. But that's just we have to think about it legitimately and how it would work in practice. So but in concept, I do think it could possibly help the city.
Yeah, I think something like a trolley would actually be, yes, it would be a massive investment, and it would be a very long time for it to actually fully take form. But I think if it was used in addition to capitalizing on the wonderful culture and history that we have in Harrisburg, because this city is rich in history. I adore walking down Front Street by the riverside and looking at all of the buildings, and they're gorgeous. That was one of the first things I did when my dad and I came. We walked through the city before I moved in my first year, and one of the first things we did was walk down 2nd Street all the way to Front, and then we just did a loop, and we stood there for an hour going down Front Street and looking at all the beautiful buildings and walking through the city, and it was gorgeous. I think we can capitalize on that. I know there's been some sort of recent movements to get more historical plaques and monuments and just to start building on that history, but I think it could be useful to bringing people in. Having something like a trolley, that's small town charm, and people are like, "Oh wow, look at that, we can take the trolley to go do something, how fun." And just something like that, it just adds a sort of sense of fun and whimsy, honestly, that would just, it'd be nice, it would just be fun, and I think it would help bring people's spirits up, if nothing else.
There you go. Well, again, it sounds like we need a campaign, a rallying campaign, and then along with the events calendar and along with maybe the best ideas for the newest attraction for young people. I mean, just getting people thinking, right? Would you guys be willing to be a part of something like that? To bring your your brain power. Well, I'm going to ask one other tough question, and then I'm going to see if anybody out there has a burning question. We'll let you ask it, all right? But I do want to ask the tough question about, is it a safe city to you? Do you feel that crime is an issue? Jazz, go ahead.
So it's not that I feel like crime is an issue, it's just that I feel like it's a combination of there's so many people walking around regardless of if they're here for working or if it's they're homeless, that really makes me feel kind of iffy walking around the city. One of the main things that people told me when I first came to Harrisburg was that don't go out to 2nd Street Friday through Sunday.
Yeah.
Because it definitely does look shady, and the fact that there's also closed places where people are hanging out around also doesn't help. But the main thing that I get concerned about is around ROM. Sometimes there will just be random people that I don't know sitting near the front door, and which can pose an issue because who knows if these people are trying to get into ROM when they shouldn't be trying to do that. Another thing that at least I've had an issue with starting this year is that whenever I want to go to storm shelter to use Photoshop or something that I'm working on for the storm, I have to walk down an alley because storm shelter is located down an alley. And I've heard that there were guns down that alley. It also doesn't help that there's a bar down that alley. So there's a chance that you could run into drunk people. It's stuff like that makes me iffy, but I haven't seen many instances of crime that wasn't outside of people robbing market on market.
Anyone else want to comment on it? Go ahead, Reese.
I know for me personally, I that alley, it's definitely sketchy. It is, it's one of the main ways to get from the other major housing building, the Pennsylvania Place Apartments, to the school, especially since it's a quicker shortcut. it is extremely sketchy, and I don't really like to go down it unless I'm with somebody else. I know I have seen a few times I have gone down there, like there have been people just, it looked like a fight almost. I don't know. I wasn't really paying attention. I was more worried about my safety personally. But other than that, especially coming from Philadelphia, specifically Northeast, where it is very, very dangerous at times, it's definitely safer. But I will say, like, once it gets dark out, or like even around sunset, or going down those alleys, if that's the only other option, it can be super sketchy. And that's where it gets a little weird.
Go ahead.
I would say that, like, from my experience, there's never a point where like I feel in danger, but there's things where I do think that, like, for students who, let's say, like, if you didn't grow up in a city, because, you know, a lot of our students come from, like, you know, central PA or other rural areas, it could be a bit abrasive. And, like, you know, with my experience, like, seeing, like, the campuses in Philadelphia, like Temple, for example, across Temple's campuses, you have these, like, whenever there's like a building nearby that's related to Temple, you have like these emergency phone lines set up there.
Yeah.
So maybe something like that in the city would
Blue
help.
lights, yeah.
Yeah, the blue, yeah, those ones. And like something like that can maybe help with, like, you know, increasing safety, not only just for students, but just for people in the city. And, you know, like, there's like Capitol Police patrols pretty often, but maybe that, like, you know, some like a more direct way.
I see.
And then Reese and Jazz brought up a good part about like that alley for storm shelter. It's right next to a bar, and like from as early as 7 o'clock to as late as like midnight, you'll see, like, you know, people hanging out in that area. And the storm shelter is a housing area, so students have to come through that. Let's say if they have like a late class, or they're coming from work, that could be a bit of a problem. So maybe something to combat that. But just, I think, being more aware of stuff, because you hear stuff happening in the city, but I've personally never experienced anything. But just to be more aware of that, because it's a small city, so like it's not as much to, you know, combat as like a larger city, but problems still do happen there. So yeah.
Chris, what about you? How are you?
So, you know, I come from Lidditz, where we don't really have problems with crime. I mean, you go outside and people have their garage door open just all day long while they're inside. So coming to Harrisburg, it was a little bit shocking to me, because, like, we don't really have homeless people there, like, back in Lidditz. But I haven't had too many run-ins with people where they've actually caused problems. Usually they're pretty polite. If they ask for money, and you say no, then they just go their separate way. I've had experience myself, though, where I was going into the wrong apartment building and I was followed in by just some like random guy, and I had to confront him and be like, "Hey, do you know where you are?" And he was pretty out of it, and I had to kind of direct him out of the building, because we don't have any security that's just like directly on our first floor of the ROM apartment building. So it's just things like that like near ROM and on the side of the building too, there's a lot of people that just kind of hang out that are pretty sketchy.
Are there cameras around the building, and then just security cameras?
There's cameras all through within the building. I'm not sure about outside. I would not know that. But yeah, I mean, I've also had experiences where, like, my family have come to drop things off or see me, and they're just sitting in the car and they have people knocking on the window, seeing like, "What's up?" Which to them is like a little bit startling, you know. But
Coming from Lidditz and getting your knock on your window? Yeah, I guess so.
yeah, but
All right.
yeah, I mean, overall, I think a lot of students are kind of unsettled walking around the city late at night. They don't feel super comfortable, even though there's not many incidents of actual crime happening towards students. But it's still just not, like, I would not go outside at night. And
So
just walk
most of
around
you
for
do
fun.
your going around in the day.
Yeah.
You don't really do a lot at night.
I mean, you're sure. Like, I know personally, I love being outside at night. I have said, I don't even actually, probably countless times, even just in the last year, how much I wish even just some excess lighting across the city. Because I would love to go and be able to, like, walk down to the riverfront at night, or just walk through the city at night, because I think it's gorgeous. It's beautiful with all of the lights that we have and just the general buildings. They're very pretty at night, especially once you go towards the riverfront. You have all of those extra lights. You have the like very nicely like landscaped areas, but it's a matter of safety. And realistically, it would probably be fine. It would probably be safe, but there is always that level of like worry, especially if you want to go out alone. And I know, like, when I was starting to move in towards this area, all of my family was like, make sure you have pepper spray, make sure you have all of these things. My parents gave me an excess of pepper spray. It took a bit of convincing. The reason my dad and I came to walk through downtown was so that he could assure her that I was going to be safe. And I think part of the reason that it did help is because we're literally a block away from the Capitol Plaza. And there's the Capitol Police there. There's the sheriff's office right down Market Street. There's like 4 different forms of law enforcement with offices within 3 blocks of our campus, which helps, but it's also still a city. So going out, and anytime I talk to people about going to school in Harrisburg, they're like, oh, well, make sure you're being careful. It could be dangerous. And half the time I have to assure them, don't worry, I'm in the good part of Harrisburg because I'm right next to the Capitol, which is sad because you shouldn't have to tell people that you're actually okay when you're just living somewhere.
Good point. But to emphasize what I think all of you are saying, this truly is a beautiful part of the world. I mean, and that river, as we've all, every time we have to say that is truly a monument, the river, and the bridges over the river and all of that. So it's nothing bad about the beauty of the city at all, right? And the warmth of the people. Is that okay? Good. So far you've got, there's some positives, but the negatives are fixable with some brain power. Any pressing questions out there? If no, you have one pressing question? Come on, teacher. That's all right. We'll close it down with the teacher's question.
I promise it's not a scary one. Some of you are getting ready to graduate. What are some factors that would encourage you to stay and live and work in the Harrisburg area after graduation?
That was the last question. What can keep you here? Quickly, everyone go through. Jazz, you start.
Well, pretty much like I mentioned earlier, I would love to see the return of a land center here. If not that, then I would highly encourage the Storm to step it up and start hosting not just events for the students, but events for the general public as well. I know one idea that I wanted to pitch to Lindsay, who is our wonderful assistant director of the Storm, is that, hey, why don't we do something with Rocket League, maybe with the children that are always going in and out of the Whitaker Center? We could have like some of the Rocket League team of the Storm do stuff with these children, because you know Rocket League is a very kid-friendly game, right? Something like that. Basically anything esports related that will keep me here, along, in addition to basic grocery stores and whatnot.
I would say for me, because I've researched and kind of come across a lot of good job opportunities post-graduation, but a big thing for me is just more different cool experiences for day-to-day life outside of just going to work and going back home, even something as simple as, more grocery stores and stuff like that, but just more different things that promote engagement for people to thrive in the city, because, going to work, just working home, that's no way to live, especially as a younger person, you got to get out in the world. And a big thing for me is that if I do end up staying here, and for any type of engagement I have to leave the city, what's the point of living in the downtown? So I think that's a big thing, yeah.
Yeah, I think we kind of have to change the stigma that right now we are a city, that we have a lot of city problems, but we don't have the city amenities. We don't have the good parts of a city. I don't see myself staying here after graduation because right now it's just, the cost of living is quite high. The expenses is pretty high, but there's nothing to really justify that. If you don't have access to a grocery store or a pharmacy, but you're spending, $1,400, $1,500 on rent, then that's pretty ridiculous. So it's too expensive to live here for what you're getting at the moment. So they need to bring in things that will justify that cost.
And you don't have a car.
No.
I know for me personally, I still have several years to think about it since I'm just starting here. But I, thankfully, because of my major and my career goals, I do have more access to jobs than other people in this school because I want to go into government work. I want to be forensic scientist. However, I wouldn't necessarily stay here because I could get those same opportunities in Philadelphia, DC, Pittsburgh even. I don't want to go to Pittsburgh. But I I think definitely what Chris said, there's nothing to keep me here. It's too expensive for what you're getting. I could get a better rate in another city that has more things to do.
That's fine. I actually have no idea how we managed to not bring up the cost of living until this moment, because it's ridiculous. I have looked at multiple different apartments because I stopped living on campus due to the pricing of it, and because I had the ability to commute. The only reason I stopped living on campus is because I had that ability, other than the price. But as Reese was saying, the thing about forensics is it is everywhere. And even very small areas are starting to bring in forensics people, or they're starting to form those things. So even if something is not there, there's an opportunity for it to be there later. So the issue is, why would I stay in Harrisburg? I like Harrisburg. I'm happy to stay in Harrisburg, but right now it's just not worth it to stay in Harrisburg because the apartments are insane. There's nothing in this local area, as we've touched on. There's grocery stores nowhere. I'm actively getting ready to, after this, go grocery shopping, and I'm going to drive with my roommate towards the Harrisburg airport because that's where Sharp Shopper is, and that's where we prefer to shop because that's where we can find that we actually can spend money and get a lot of food, whereas that's not anywhere else. So, like, it doesn't make sense. That's almost a 20-minute drive from here, which is not far, but it's not close when you're trying to live downtown and don't have a car. So.
Well, you've let us have it. You certainly have given us, frank talk, which is what we want, what our leaders need to hear, what our business people need to hear. But I will say this, Harrisburg needs you. You are exactly the kind of youth and young adults that we need to get to stay in the city of Harrisburg. So what we will do is we hope the people who are of power and influence are watching this and are taking note of what these young people are saying. We want to thank Angela and Stephanie, also a member of the class, all the class, for being so open with us. And we hope to continue this conversation and maybe to see if we can recommend your brain power to those people who are having to make the decisions, because you've come up with some positive things that could happen to keep you here. So with that, I want to thank TFAC, and I want to thank all of you for being a part of this discussion. There will be more of them, and just stay tuned for the next roundtable on Harrisburg's downtown economic development. It will happen.